how we got where we are as quickly as I can, and using our circle of wealth as a guide for this and how the circle of wealth even came to be and why it exists. (1996), I'm working at Yoke's Pack and Save in Airway Heights, Washington, the old store, not the new pretty new one. Anybody go to Airway Heights in 1996? Yes, it was a very different place in 1996, wasn't it? The grocery store that I worked at, 60% of our revenue came from food stamps. And this was back in the days when you didn't get a flashy little credit card where you could just beep it and nobody knew. This is back in the days when you got books that had colored Monopoly money and you had to rip them up and count them out on the till in front of everybody to see. And that was our demographic, that was our clientele. I spent most nights chasing down shoplifters, not checking groceries or bagging them. Because that's just what it was. Today, Airway Heights is an up-and-coming place, a lot of growth going on there, and will continue to grow. But that's where I was. My shift was 3 to midnight. I was what was called a merchandiser. I went from bag boy to merchandiser, which means I'm the guy who built all the really cool displays out of Coke cans and high-C juice boxes, and that's what I did. My shift was 3 to midnight, and when I would get home, the only thing on TV was infomercials. I saw an infomercial and said, I want to do that. I went to a 2-hour presentation at the DoubleTree Hotel in downtown Spokane, and they convinced me to spend all of the money that I did not have. I maxed out my credit cards to go to this training, and I had to get a loan against my truck. So I refinanced the truck that I was driving to be able to pay for the 3-day class. As a result of going to the 3-day class, I flipped my first house in 96. Over by Spokane Falls Community College. We bought it for 35 grand, put 15 into it, and sold it for 79,000. Partnered with the pharmacist at the grocery store that I worked at. His name was Brent. Many of you have met Brent. He's been into the office. Brent and I are still friends, and he's still flipping houses. He currently has a real estate portfolio of about $15 million. So he and I started buying together and growing together and building businesses together. But we haven't done a deal since 1996, which is interesting. But it's also the reason I like to tell people that my first deal was financed by a drug dealer, because Brent was a pharmacist. So in 2000, I moved to Cape Coral, Florida to go work for the company that put on the real estate investment seminar. It was a company called Russ Whitney and Whitney Information Network. And so I spent the next year on the road traveling around doing real estate investment seminars. When in Salt Lake City, that's where I met Jacqueline. We dated for 2 years, got married in August 17th of 2002. So this year we'll be celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary, which has been great. And in 2003, I met a gentleman who ran a telemarketing floor, similar to this. Now, up to that point, I had never done anything in business outside of real estate. So when I went and met with him, his name was Justin, and I went and met with him the first time, and I said, Justin, I want you to invest in my company and what I'm doing. I said, give me $1 million. I'm flipping houses. And he said, well, I'll give you 100 grand and let's see where that goes. So we did our first deal, and then we went on to do more deals. And then I went to him and I said, hey, Justin, you know, you've got all these salespeople that are selling coaching and info products and all this stuff. I said, I'd like to be a guru. And he said, well, Lee, why do you want to be a guru? I said, because I want to help people. And he said, well, give me the names and addresses and phone numbers of 5 people that you have helped become millionaires through real estate. And I didn't know any, because I had never done that. My focus in real estate had always been on me and flipping and buying and fixing houses for me. I didn't have any testimonials. I didn't have any successful clients. And so he told me, he said, when you do, you call me and we'll talk about making you a guru. I said, okay. So I set out to help other people become successful in real estate. I started a real estate brokerage called Superior Realty, ran that for about 8 years before the crash of 2009. And I had 65 agents that were working for me. Many of those agents went on to become millionaires in real estate. Many of them are still millionaires in real estate down in Salt Lake City. They're still buying, fixing, flipping houses. They now own their own real estate brokerages, and they're doing development deals. So pretty exciting stuff. And so I went back to Justin. I said, okay, Justin, here's the successful people. He said, great, Lee, let's put together a book and tape course. We put together a book and tape course called Endless Wealth. We launched in the spring of 2004. And this was teaching people how to do short sales. So we were teaching people all over the nation how to do short sales. In our first 4 months, we did $2.4 million in real estate education sales. I was getting a 5% royalty, so in 4 months I made 120 grand. And I was pretty excited about that. I said, man, this is great. And I was so excited, I flew my parents down to celebrate, and I wanted to show my dad the office, so we drove up to the building, and there was a padlock on the front door. Because Justin had been doing some things that I was unaware of, and the feds had locked the office. Now, fortunately, I had enough, I won't say knowledge, I had enough blessing that before we inked that deal, my attorneys had told me, Lee, make sure you own the copyright to all the information. And I did. And so his business was now defunct. He ultimately ended up getting a big judgment against him. I took the product, the information, and in 2004 started this company. Or the version of this company, and very quickly I had to learn how to market and how to sell and how to manage and how to build teams, and it was big. It was a lot. And that's when we formed the Lee Arnold System, and we started teaching foreclosures and how to do foreclosures and foreclosure investing. But my clients were lacking something. They were lacking a Brent in their life. They were lacking somebody that would lend them the money to do these deals. And so we wanted to help them have access to funding, and that's where the idea of Cogo. We weren't Cogo yet, but we started lending money to our clients. Fast forward, 2008, I start building really big luxury homes in Park City, Utah. 14,000 square feet. I was building them for $8 million and selling them for $24 million. I had 3 of them that came into market July of 2008. Bear Stearns went down in August. Lehman Brothers went down in September. And the company went from doing about $300,000 a month to doing $6,000 a month in a 90-day period of time. In one day, I laid off 64 employees. We went from 68 employees to 4. And the entire market crashed for those of you that were involved in real estate in 2008. In 2009, literally on the verge of bankruptcy with nothing left, we had no money. I borrowed money from my whole life insurance policy, and Jacqueline and I moved the family up here to the Pacific Northwest, where I am from actually. I graduated from Cheney High School in 1995. Go Blackhawks, right? As did Nicole in 2001, a fellow Blackhawk, yeah. So we came up here with nothing. We kept 3 employees, Cherie being one of them, Cherie Constance, and then we moved a salesperson up with us and an assistant, and that was it. And so we ran that company out of our basement of our home, which was over by Central Valley High School, until we got a letter from our HOA that says you can't run a business out of your home. And so we moved the business to the Factory Outlet Mall over here in Post Falls, and we housed what used to be the sock factory. And we had a little location of about 800 square feet, and then my office was in the back storage room where they stored all the socks. And we set up computer monitors, and people were dialing from a Magic Jack, if you guys remember Magic Jacks. Okay, this was the early days of internet phone technology. And I think, Nicole, you started out at that building, right, in 2010? Yeah, so Nicole had just graduated college, or you're about to graduate college, and we had her putting together desks and doing all kinds of work and heavy lifting. Has it been 15 years, Nicole? 14, wow, okay. So that's where we were, and in that location we grew to about 14 people, and that's when we decided we want to get into the lending space. This is where we started Cogo Capital, okay? So Cogo Capital was formed in 2012, and at that time we were just doing tabletop lending. So we would find a deal, we'd underwrite the deal, we'd push it out to our investors, and then we would fund it. The problem is that many of our lenders fund deals through their self-directed IRA, and the money couldn't move fast enough. And so that's when we formed our private equity funds, which is the high yield funds here, Secured Investment Corp. So we formed our first fund in 2013. That was Fund 1. It was an up and down fund, so we closed it in 18. We formed Fund 2 in 15. And then in 2019, we formed Fund 3, which is our Reg A Plus non-accredited investor fund, because I wanted all of our clients to be able to participate in passive income investing for themselves and for their families. So that's where all of this was coming from, okay? Now, in 2009, I grew up Christian. I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor. He was a youth pastor. And when I started making money in 97, 98, 99, I drifted very, very far away from the Lord. and you would not recognize me as a Christian. I mean, I was everything but a good Christian kid. And I did everything you weren't supposed to do, and I was really loving that lifestyle. And in 2008, when we lost everything, I felt like it was God telling me and getting my attention to say, Lee, stop doing that. You need to make me a part of your business. So when we moved up here in July of '09, when we decided we were going to start this company and rebuild, the first thing we did is we formed He's the Solution Ministries. That was October of 2009. So we're coming up on our 16th anniversary of the ministry starting, which is why, you guys, it is in the center of the circle of wealth. Because the Bible says, what should it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? The Bible also says that it is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than it is for a camel to go through an eye of a needle. So if all I was doing was focusing on making my clients rich, the more money they made, the further away they were getting from God. And so we wanted balance. We wanted to help them be rich financially, but we also wanted them to be rich spiritually. Because if all we're doing is helping them monetarily get rich, we're not helping them spiritually or eternally. And that's what we wanted this to be. So in 2018, our clients came to us and said, hey, would you guys put on an event or something where we could just come together and hang out? And we said, okay, well, sure, what should we call it? And they said, well, why don't we call it the Be Bold for Jesus Conference? We said, okay, well, let's do that. So we booked a venue in 2018 in Dallas, Texas. We had 18 people show up. The fact that we have almost 8,000 tickets sold 6 months in advance of this year is God's provision and blessing on that ministry and that conference and this company, because we're putting him first place and making him the priority in everything that we do, which is why now the Be Bold for Jesus Conference is the bullseye of this, because this is something that all of our clients can come together on, worship together, pray together, celebrate together, and just make it what it is, all about Jesus. That's the goal, okay? So Lee Arnold System was created to teach our clients how to invest in real estate. Cogo Capital was created so that we could be the Brent Elliott, the pharmacist who gave me hope, who gave me financing, who gave me the ability to do deals when I had no money, no credit, nothing. Without Brent, none of us would be here. I want people to say that about Cogo. Without Cogo Capital, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I've heard countless clients say that very thing. Without Cogo, I would not be where I am today. So that's why we created this. But we wanted to give our clients vision. The Bible says without vision, the people will perish. And so we have two goals for our clients. Goal number one, $250,000 in cash. Goal number two, we want them to become an accredited investor so that they can put their money in a private equity fund, which, by the way, Q1 Fund 2 is paying out how much, Amy? 9.5%, which means if you have $1 million in our private equity fund, we're paying you $95,000 a year passively when you don't even have to get out of bed or go to work. So we want to help our clients achieve goal number one so that they can achieve goal number two, and we can manage their money, and then they can go on full-time mission trips, they can go serve people in other places, they can go work in charities, whatever they want to do, because their finances are taken care of. And it is all held together by Lake City Servicing. Lake City Servicing was formed in 2014 because we could not find any servicers that could do it as well as we wanted it done. And so I think it was where's Nicole? Nicole was Lake City 2012. Jacqueline's not here. So Gary, 2012. Let's go with 2012. By the way, Gary came up and joined us. Gary worked with the company from 2004 till 2009. He was part of that RIF, unfortunately. And so he went and did security in Arizona. And when Cogo was growing again, I called Gary, said, Gary, you got to come out here and help me run this thing. And that, you and Cheryl moved up in 2011. So Gary and I worked together. And we met at the grocery store, by the way, in 1996. That's how Gary and I know each other. And I invited him to youth group, which was at my parents' house because my dad was the youth pastor. And that's where Gary met his wife, Cheryl, who I grew up with. So that's that connection. Amy, you didn't know that, did you? Yeah. Everybody's learning something new today. Okay, so Gary and I worked together a very long time. And Gary, and I think you and Cherie are neck and neck for how long we've worked together, Gary, but it's been like 16, 17 years. And Gary's been a tremendous asset to Cogo Capital, as has Nicole. What did I miss? Oh, Cherie. So we've had a good run, okay? Now, APH. From 2009 to almost 2012, I did not flip a single house. Not a single home. From 2009 to 2012. I was so gun shy. Guys, I had lost 85 rental properties. I had lost $30 million in valuation in the houses that I was building. Literally lost everything. And I was gun shy. I was afraid to invest in real estate. and that was just the reality. Now, APH stands for Arnold Professional Holdings. I formed that company in 2004 in Utah. It was a Utah-based entity, and I formed it to hold the assets that we were holding. Well, in 2009, it lost all those assets. It had nothing. 2012, Jacqueline wakes up and she says to me, she says, Lee, we need to get back into real estate. I said, why? She said, it's the future of our family. Now, when Jacqueline says she had a dream, you better listen, because God speaks to her through dreams. So when Jacqueline says, I had a dream, I'm like, what did he say? You know. And he said, we need to get back in real estate. I said, why? She says, well, because APH, a company that I formed in 2003, is the initials of our kids, Andrea, Preston, Harrison, in the very birth order, oldest to youngest, APH. Arnold Professional Holdings became Andrea, Preston, Harrison. You guys have seen them in the office because they've been working here. We've been buying houses in their CISA. One of the houses that we bought last week, my daughter Andrea bought through her CISA, which, by the way, was financed by Nicole McAllister, Lisa McNeil, and a woman that used to work here, Leah, okay? They have joined the circle of wealth as passive investors and lenders, lending money to my daughter, which that house will pay for her first year of college at Liberty University in Virginia. Why am I telling you all of this? Because you guys need to understand the history of this organization and what we've been through and the places that we have gone and overcome that God has brought us through. Because when you're on the phone with our clients this week, you're going to be hearing a lot of concern and a lot of worry. Oh my goodness, the sky is falling. Tariffs are killing us. Prices are going up. Inflation's going to be terrible. Who cares? Stop worrying about that. Let's focus on you. Let's focus on what you're going to do and how you're going to get through this. Now, the reason we have the buy box that we have, 5 Cogo Buy Box, okay? Residential single family 1 to 4 units, under the FHA cap, 2,800 square feet or smaller, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, half acre or less. The reason that is our buy box is because in 2010, when the sky was falling and the markets were bottoming out, President Obama came up and said, we're gonna throw billions of dollars at the FHA and the VA, and we're gonna provide financing for first-time home buyers and second-time home buyers through the FHA cap. Which means no matter what's going on in the market, the government is always going to throw money at that segment of real estate. The reason it is our underwriting box is it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy or in the markets locally, nationally, or globally, the government is always going to favor that buy box by 80%. 80% of all government funding will go to that buy box. So as long as our clients stay and do what we teach them to do and buy the assets that we teach them to buy, that we will finance for them when they buy them. Tariffs don't matter. Doesn't matter what's going on. You've got to give our clients confidence in what we are doing and why we're doing it. Comfort in knowing we've been there. I've been through 3 recessionary downturns. I'm not concerned with this one.